So, episode 2. I have to start off by saying that I am so excited for everybody to hear your story. Thank you so much for being here, the one and only Kaly Jaff. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Honestly, it's an honor to be here. Thanks for even thinking of me.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm trying to focus 2025, not to let my imposter syndrome make me small. I appreciate that I'm here and I've been asked, but the whole way here I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm interesting enough and I have enough to say and I'm going to humbly just accept and thanks. I'm excited to see what's to come of this episode.
Me too. Thank you so much for being here. So I think, first of all, we were talking a little bit before we started and I'm so fascinated about it, right? Take me back because you started in dentistry. Mm-hmm. So I want to understand, where did you start and how did that transition into the amazing aesthetics business that you have now?
So dentistry was heavily encouraged by my family. We left Iraq in the war and we came over here and it was all about education and stability and security. And my mom and dad always enlisted that we had a career path that was guaranteed to get a job. I wanted to be an artist. I wanted to be a hairdresser. I wanted to do things that made people pretty and feel happy. And my mom was like, yeah, that's not stable. You're not going to be paying the bills. So you can be a doctor, you can be a dentist. My aunt was a doctor at the time. She still is. Mm-hmm. And I could see that night shifts and the work pattern just didn't suit the kind of lifestyle that I wanted to have because I knew I wanted to be a mom. So dentistry then became the default. And I loved my university career. It was the best 5 years of my life. Mm-hmm. 6, because you train for a year as well. And then when I had graduated and I was in the big bad world of providing care now and all the fun was over, I knew that there was aspects that I loved, which is the patient side of things, building a rapport, looking after people. I found it extremely daunting that patients looked to me for answers. Mm-hmm. When I graduated, I was 23. You're so young at that stage. I was like, who am I to tell a 65-year-old what's going on with his health? So it was a really steep learning curve into trusting yourself and owning your power.
Mm-hmm. Did you have imposter syndrome then?
100%. I still have it now. I'm 37 and I have to keep telling myself to be quiet and not make myself smaller because I'm allowed to enjoy the where I am, like the position I've created for myself without coming in. I used to come into a room and be like, oh guys, I'm a hot mess. No, you're not a hot mess. Hi guys, thanks for having me. But my brain's like, oh guys, I'm a hot mess. Anyway, I diverge. We're going to be here all night.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm taking you off on a tangent already.
I know.
I'm having to hold myself back. Sorry. So you started in dentistry.
And it was incredible. Like I said, there was parts that I loved, which was the patient care side of things. But the patients don't like to be at the dentist. There are very few people that like to be at the dentist. They're usually investing in a smile makeover and Invisalign, like pain-free, pretty dentistry. But the kind of dentistry I was doing was NHS. It was patients in pain, extractions, treatments, abscesses. And I was feeling like I was pouring my heart and soul into my day and leaving with very little to no satisfaction. And that's when things started to change. I think everybody was talking about Monday blues, like, oh my God, it's Sunday, Monday blues. And I thought, this is normal. I'm supposed to dread going back to work. But then when it came to lockdown, well, first of all, I did practice for a year, which is where you train. I realized it wasn't quite feeding me for one point or another. I thought it was the practice I was in. So I moved to Dundee for a year and I went into hospital. I thought maybe I needed more of a challenge or maybe I wanted to do more oral medicine or oral surgery. So I did that for a year and found it extremely lonely. Patients that are going into what we call secondary care are based on referrals. So there's a wisdom tooth your dentist can't get out. They're going to refer you. You go do that appointment and then you come straight back to your dentist. So yes, the dentistry was more fun. It was more challenging cases and I advanced my skill set in oral medicine and oral surgery. But I was seeing patients for a moment in time and then they were just disappearing into the universe and I just never saw them again. I never got to hear how the date went or how the wedding was and if they got out of pain. It was like I did it and then their dentist got the credit for it. And I never got that feedback again. And when the year ended, I realized this isn't for me either. But I still held on to the fact that there was something about dentistry. It wasn't that it was the wrong career. It just maybe wasn't a hospital for me. So I came back into practice in Kilwinning and wanted to focus more on children, thinking that children develop a lot quicker than adults. And therefore, I would probably need to see them more often. I could utilize that time to build a rapport, build a relationship, watch them grow up and have those magical moments about the tooth fairy and Santa's coming and when's your birthday and what did granddad do? And it was great. But then the kind of children that you're seeing often in dentistry are those that are deprived. Children that are healthy are only coming in for their 6 monthly reviews. And so I found a deep sadness in the relationships I was building, but again, feeling helpless. You know, I can give children oral health advice, but it's the parents that are responsible for that. So again, I was leaving feeling like I'd emptied my cup and having no satisfaction back. And then slowly one day, my nurse asked me to do her lips. I went on a course, I qualified, I did her lips. It was immediate satisfaction. She was immediately able to pick up the mirror, bounce back her happiness. I was bouncing back. We were like buzzing off each other. And then the next day I'm getting a selfie. And then the next day a friend's coming. And then it was like fireworks. There's just this energy that I was like, oh, wow, I'm enjoying this. I still had that patient care. I still had the responsibility of honoring the patient's dignity and making sure that I'm guiding them, respecting mental health. And this is a whole other podcast, mental health, body dysmorphia. But 90% of our interaction was I was able to guarantee what I was giving you was going to make you happy. And then you were immediately able to feed that back to me. And that just became my drug. And then I slowly realized it is that part of dentistry that I love. The patient, the me and you, that we're friends. I'm invested in you. I want to make you happy. You trust me. That makes me happy. And then I want to make you happy for trusting me. And then it's like, and also I would get to see you every 3 to 5 months, every 6 to 9 months, every 9 to 12 months. And it was just the perfect recipe. But from 2011, which is when I graduated, to 2020, which is when eventually I got the confidence to leave dentistry and be fully aesthetics, it was not easy. There was a lot of highs and lows, a lot of opinions, loads of my dad, for example. I can't believe you're going to leave being a dentist to be a hairdresser. I was like, first of all, that's not what I'm doing. Yeah. But I get that his generation just don't understand. Or like my patients being like, oh, so I can't see you for another 2 weeks. Like, what were you going to be doing? Oh, I'm doing Botox fillers. Oh, all that stuff. And it was hard for me. I felt like for a while, patients were losing respect for me, like my dental patients. Yeah,
they were almost being dismissive or judging.
100%. Yeah. Judgy. And then I felt like I was letting them down. But then you just have an epiphany and you're like, let them. Just let them. I know nobody can take my degree away from me. Nobody can take the years of training that I did. Nobody can take away my ethos, my integrity. Some people love Botox and fillers or that stuff. Some people have very negative opinions about it. But I made it my mission to educate, to let people know that you can get it done. And if you do it respectfully, it's just a compliment to you. And it doesn't need to look like what we see on social media and MTV. And so, yeah, I think in lockdown, loads of things changed economically, politically, socially, even the way that we work all changed. It made me stop and smell the roses for a bit. And I realized I don't want to do dentistry anymore.
Wow. And that's quite a big jump, right?
Yeah. And even breaking that to my family, I was like, I want to care for patients, but I want to care for patients in a way that makes me happy, that I want to wake up for it. And then I'm not going to get bored. I can see myself retiring from aesthetics. Whereas dentistry, I was like, come on, 37 years, 25 days and 14 hours. Come on. Like, that's not life.
No.
And I have touch wood, no Monday blues. I work every Saturday in the year unless it's somebody's birthday. And it's my pleasure. It's genuinely my pleasure.
And I think what's so amazing about that is I take two key things from that, which is that you were doing something which on paper is phenomenal, right? Like it's an incredible achievement, but your soul was telling you to do something else. And there are two aspects to that. One of the first things you said is that you wanted to be an artist. So there was a craving for creativity, right? There was something in your soul that needed to express itself creatively, right? And then I think the second thing you touched on was building relationships that were longer lasting. It was really important to you to work with other people. So for me, I would say that the spiritual element is that you were led to that. Do you feel like something was drawing you to really what your soul was supposed to do?
100%. But I think it takes you a while to listen to your guts. Even now, there's situations I'm in, friendships, conversations I'm having, and my gut is like, bro, run. But the brain in me is like, be polite, you must stay, you must invest, you must. And that's exactly what I was doing for 11 years by the time I finished but you went to uni for 5 years. Like, you can't throw that away now. You can't. You're a dentist. All your friends are dentists. Come on, like, what are people going to think of you? And then my soul was like, you're not happy. You're not happy. So I kept changing the dynamics. Maybe it was this practice. Maybe it was the hospital. Maybe it was my boss, or maybe that one patient that was racist really triggered me and how I feel about that space. And actually, it's maybe you just don't like it. Maybe that's it. And I think it takes an enormous amount of courage to take the leap. And trust me, I dragged my heels. To the point where I did 1 day dentistry a week for about a year. And that's pointless. You're not looking after patients.
You're like just keeping your toe in the water a little bit.
Ticking a box.
Yeah, because you don't want to let it go. Yes.
I'm still a dentist. You have like that umbilical cord to, I feel like I should do the right thing. But the right thing is to follow your guts. A part of it that when you were talking that really reminded me is the element of looking after people. And I was bouncing, trying to find, the porridge that was for me is I did a lot of humanitarian work before COVID when it was easier to do. And it was then when I realized the dentistry that I was offering in Glasgow was not creative. I was just cleaning up. I was just tidying up. You've got wall-to-wall decay, gum disease everywhere. I tidy up. I give you all the information. I've looked after you. And I'm like, okay, I'll see you in 6 months. And I am hoping I've planted seeds that are going to flourish into these beautiful flowers. You're going to come back with the Garden of Babylon for me. Except you've got more decay. You've got more gum disease. And I'm like, bro.
Like, Groundhog Day.
Again. So you do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
And when I was in these humanitarian, I would go to Greece, for example, to work in a Syrian refugee camp. That's exactly what I was doing again. I was just cleaning up. But I had satisfaction in those scenarios. But even though I was doing the same kind of dentistry in Glasgow, I didn't have satisfaction. I was trying to figure out why. And it's because the scenarios in the refugee camps, they were so grateful. They were so happy. They were like, you've got me out of pain. I had no idea when I'd be seeing a dentist. This is amazing. Not that I need a pat on the back for everything that I do. That's not what this is. But I want to know that when I've invested in something, that it was fruitful. Yeah,
and it's making a difference to the other person. Yep.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I would hate to come here, do this, like pour myself up, be completely transparent, and then it just flops for you. You did the same for me. Oh my God, it's all coming. You're like, I hope it's okay. Of course it's okay. Yes. What do you mean? Yes. Because I care about you. And I want to make sure that any interaction I have with you is in a positive way. And the only way that I receive that is with gratitude. So if you're grateful to me, I'm buzzing. I'm buzzing all the way home.
Yeah.
If you're like, yeah, all right, I was okay. I'm going to spend the whole drive home being like, was I not funny enough? Did I maybe not? Maybe I was too tired. And that's in a childhood.
Yeah.
But the refugee camp, it was immediate gratitude, like really, really grateful. And then I was like, I'm honored to do it for you. This is not difficult for me. But when I was coming back to Glasgow and, I've planted my seeds, and then 6 months later, it was like all weeds again. I'm like, guys, come on. But again, that's a whole other podcast. It's just oral medicine and how society views it and who cares and why we don't care. And that's the boring stuff.
But do you know what? I think it's so fascinating to hear that thought process that you went through. And really, even beyond that, it was the journey of your soul.
Yeah.
Right? Of what you're supposed to do. And I think that when I hear you doing the humanitarian work and you can through that process and then gradually starting to do the Botox and fillers and something clicked, it was like a puzzle piece, like puzzle pieces getting put together, right? And 100%. Taking you to where you're supposed to be. And I think if we fast forward to now, you look at what you're doing, you look at what you've achieved, you know, you're doing something incredible, right? You've got a huge business in Glasgow and it's buzzing, right? And I'm very lucky that not only are we friends, but I'm one of your clients, right? And I guess when you think now, if you were to stop in this moment, what are you most proud of from what you've achieved with aesthetics?
Oh,
we're going right in at the deep end.
I'm trying not to get upset. It provided stability for my family because we left, and when I say my family, I don't mean my babies. I mean my mom and dad, my brother, and my sister. And we left in 1995. We left Iraq in the Gulf War. We came here. We had nothing. We were homeless. I remember. Do you remember like the catalogs that used to get delivered to your door, and you got to order like a toilet brush that was also like a window squeegee thing?
Yes.
That's what my dad did. He would walk around the houses with this catalog. He would pray for orders. I'm sorry, but my dad is a professor. He has a PhD. He's the dean of the university in Iraq, and he has been lowered to do this because it's the only thing he could do to provide for his family. We were getting paid weekly, and the house that we were living in, the electricity and the hot water ran on a card. So if my mom and dad didn't get money, my mom was a seamstress. Also, by the way, PhD, professor, university lecturer in chemistry, but people were coming to our house at like 6 p.m. We were having to have dinner in the kitchen without our parents because she was like rolling up hems of trousers for £6. Some people wouldn't even pay her. They wouldn't come back. Or some people would say, I'm going to give you 4 because it wasn't quick enough or whatever. And then we would take that money and my mom and dad would buy the card and we would click it into the boiler, and that's what then provided our electricity for the next 7 days. Wow. So many times I'd be in the shower and it'd go off. Didn't matter if I had shampoo in my hair or not, you're out. That's it. Like we ran out of money. And at the time I didn't see the stress of it because my parents protected us so much from that. But then to be in a position where my mom and dad are not working, I give them salaries from my business comfortably, that we can take my mom to Capri and the Amalfi Coast for her birthday, that it wasn't a struggle for me to buy her a birthday present. I take her to Glen Eagles, like that. And it's not the money, it's the light will never go out. My hair will never be soaking in conditioner for me to go to bed again. And I built that. Yes, enlisted with the drive of my mother and the passion of education for my father and the fear of not having it again. Like Will Smith said, having money is not everything. Not having it is. And it's so true. I don't want money. I don't want a big house or a big car. I just want to make sure that I'm not without anything. As long as there's a roof over my head, my family are close and we have health, that's all I want. So the biggest thing that I'm proud of is that my mom and dad's sacrifice wasn't in vain, and that I can support them comfortably. And if I was to pass today on my way home, that my new family, my kids are fine. That's my biggest, okay, I deserve a pat on the back for them. And my sister and my brother and that. I
mean, that is so powerful, right? And thank you for sharing that, because I can tell how personal that is, right? Yeah. And I think what I would say is it takes me back to, I've told this story before, right? But I think it's important as to why I want to do this series of spirituality and business, right? Because they don't necessarily go hand in hand, right? At first glance. Yeah. But for me, the question that someone posed to me, and it really blew my mind, was, why is it that you could have 2 bakeries in the same street? right? And they could be equal in terms of what they offer. One person has like 500 people in the queue and the other one is empty, right? Why is that? Why does it happen from a spiritual perspective? And my teacher said it's because of the authenticity of the intention of the person who's got the popular one, right?
Yeah.
And so for me, there's a really beautiful connection between the success that you have and the purity of that intention.
Yeah.
The purity of what drives you and how personal that is to you is, you know, I think that there's no accident that also that goes hand in hand with your success, right?
Yeah.
So I think you've maybe answered this a little bit, right? But if I was to ask you directly, what makes you passionate? So that's your driving force, right? But for what you do day to day, what makes you passionate about what you do?
I mean, it's really topical at the moment because the main thing that's making me passionate at the moment is education. It changes and it will change again. If we had this conversation 5 years from now, it will be another passion. And I think it's important to reinvent your values to keep you motivated. Right now it's education. I think the biggest thing for me is I want people to change their perception of aesthetics. There's such a negative stigma about it. Everyone's husband's got an opinion, everyone's boyfriend's got an opinion. And there's a huge political debate at the moment about medics versus non-medics and who should be offering it and who shouldn't be offering it. And my biggest flex at the moment is waking up and patients are coming in the door. Okay, for example, I had a patient on Monday last week who was a referral from a dentist that I worked with maybe 7 years ago. This is another thing that my dad taught me. Be nice to people on your way up because you're going to meet them on your way down. I've made so many relationships in my figuring out what I want to do that's completely being reaped now. All the rewards are coming. So one of them being really complex cases being referred by dentists that feel like I've done all the dentistry, patient's still not happy, go see Kaly. And I'm just finishing it off. And that patient was in my chair for an hour and 48 minutes, 50 of it was me just talking to her about the fact that this is not wrong or weird for her to be here. She was ashamed to be there.
Wow.
Like, I don't want Botox. I don't want fillers. I said, no, you don't want to look weird. No one does. But you do want to smoothen out the line. You do want to relax your lip. You do want to see less gum, right? So let's just separate what you want and don't want and not use the words Botox and fillers because you'll slowly realize that you are in the right place, but maybe I just need to change the perception of it. So that's my biggest flex. And see, when eventually she gives me consent to put my gloves on, I'm like, yes, like I did it. And then she was delighted. And then she sent me an email the next day, and that's a client for life now. So I think, but then again, it comes from care. It comes from educating them and guiding them. That's my biggest passion just now. Very, very close to that, like almost like see-through page next to it is to make people happy. Just honestly, it sounds so cheesy, but see, just like giving you the mirror when I've done a treatment and you're like, I'm like, I know, shit. Like, I'm so happy about it. And then when you have that relationship with your patient, I don't need to be professional anymore. I don't need to be like, are you satisfied with what we've done today?
Yes.
I'm like, hot damn, you better get on Tinder. and I like it really, really buzz off it. And especially if they've just come out of a breakup, they're single, they're dating, they've got a wedding coming up, or they're the bride or the mother of the bride. I'm like, boy, you're gonna look better than the other mother of the groom. and I get so invested. Like I get tagged and I'm zooming in. I'm like, like making people happy and educating them and then changing the stereotype of it. I try and use my socials for that, to try and change the stereotype of what is aesthetics. And that's where the secret came from. It should just be our little secret.
I love it. I mean, and I think there's so many things I could unpack from that, right? But what I probably want to talk about is my experience, right? So I came to you 3 years ago, I think now, right?
Yeah.
And I only wanted Botox. Right. So I felt ready for Botox. I kind of thought, right, okay. But when I came in, I asked you about some other problem areas that I had, right? And what I always love about you is that you were very gentle, right? So you went pushy. I said to you, what do you think I need? If this is a blank canvas, what are we going to do, right? And you did exactly that. You talked to me about filler.
Yeah.
Now, I had a bit of a mental block because I didn't understand what it was, right?
And you also think it's
and
for...
I had a judgment.
Yeah. It's for the 25-year-old girl. Who am I?
Yeah, I was like, I don't need filler. Like, where would that? But do you know what? I think your experience, your knowledge, the trust that I had in you as a person, I've had filler and I've never looked back. Yeah. Right? In fact, I think I was back to you like a year later going, let's do it again and let's do more. And you were like, let's
calm down
a little bit, right? We don't need that much. But that's exactly my experience. That's right, so is nice you've educated me so much. And then I think also I am so thrilled and excited to share that with other people, right? And talk about it. And because it's really, actually it's funny because I had this conversation recently to say that I feel in my 30s, I'm 37, right? I'm like, I feel the most comfortable in my own skin, but also I'm happy to say the best that I've ever looked.
Yeah,
right?
100%.
And that's okay to say that, right?
Honey, I've seen your pictures.
Because, I mean, even recently I looked like 5 years ago, I was like, wow. So, and I think that's a nice place to be because I spent my 20s a little bit uncomfortable, I wasn't comfortable in my own skin, right? So I think to get to a place of real deep confidence, right?
Yeah.
On the inside, but also that the outside reflects that, right?
Okay, I have a secret to tell you.
Okay.
So you texted me maybe like Tuesday or something. I think it was Tuesday.
Yeah.
And I got your text message and I was driving and I was like, okay, I'll reply back properly. I'm going to give him a voice note because you've texted me a few times and I've just been like read and then forgot about it.
Yeah.
I'm going to do the decent thing and sit down and voice note.
Okay.
So I put the phone down and I'm at the traffic lights in Annie's Land, just at the Shell garage. And this really confident, handsome, tall man.
You're joking.
Swear my kid's life. You're crossing the road. And I was just watching you. I was like, look how happy you are. And I was going to beep. I was going to roll the window down. I was going to call you, like, to look to your right. And I thought, no, I want to just sit back and I want to just enjoy this. Like that, not that it's not me, I'm not taking credit, but to see a patient happy and you were not posing, you were not with anyone, you were just in your own element and your shoulders were back, your head was up. And I thought, if I didn't know him, I would think, God, he's got it all. He's confident, he's happy. And it was such a pleasure. It was like watching my child learn a word for the first time, to just watch you cross the road, stop, and then cross the road again. I was like, that was beautiful.
That is so nice. But I'm laughing because I can't believe you seen me. That is hilarious.
And I just drove past and I was like, I'm happy. Like that, he's happy for it. I'm happy for you because it's so clear that you're confident. You walk with like air underneath your feet. You just, and you can tell that you're in a good place. So
thank you. And that you are a part of that, right? You're definitely a part of that because I think that, and that took a long time.
Yeah.
That took me a long time, right? I think your 20s, I mean, this could be another podcast, right? I think your 20s are so different from your 30s.
Oh, yeah.
I feel so much more solidified in who I am, right? And a lot more comfortable.
And unapologetically as well.
100%, but also with the spiritual stuff, I think, because I'm doing that thing, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, right? And I think one of the things that I always go back to is brand values, right? And really understanding what I stand for. When you think about your business, right? I think I know what you stand for as a person. What does your business stand for? What are the values?
Number one at the forefront of all of it is patient safety and care. That's I always want to make sure I don't lose sight of that, because sometimes the people pleaser in me can be led astray because I am almost led by the patient. They're like, I really want you to fix this. Right. And I'm like, I'm now like skiing off piste, and this is when I can overfill or it can get a wee bit too much. So almost the first pillar is patient care and safety. I make sure that we use products that are genuine, legit, backed by science. If anything was to go wrong, I'm fully equipped to dissolve, fix, refill, correct. That's number one. Number two is that I want it to look really subtle. And that's where the name The Secret came from. I don't want anyone to know you're getting anything done. I want people to look at you like the way I looked at you crossing the road and be like, what's the secret? How in this current world is he so light in his energy? And I want to be able to give that to people. And number 3 is the family value. You've been into The Secret. You know, it's like I've created like a home. It's all my family pictures on the walls. I want to give you a coffee. I want to host you. I want to change the experience of getting these treatments. I don't want you to come into a waiting room with posters and the news is on the TV. We've all been there. And then you go in and it's white coat syndrome. It's blue gloves. It's sign your consent, tick box, no personality, no interaction, nothing. And then you leave. I wanted to create an experience. All came from Disneyland. I think I told you this.
No, I don't know this.
So I went to Disney for the first time when I was like 15, 16. And one of the rides that we wanted to go on was Tower of Terror. And the waiting time was 75 minutes. And I remember being like, who is waiting 75 minutes to go on a ride?
And what are they doing for 75 minutes, like in this queue? Yeah.
Like, what? And how long is the ride? And we didn't have phones or Google at the time. And my friend, the people in front of us were like, oh, it's like 30 seconds. I was like, you want me to wait 75 minutes for 30 seconds? Like, what are you talking about? But then you decide, right, we're going on the ride. You can't miss it. And as soon as you decide, the waiting room is all like spooky and there's music and all the staff are dressed up and everybody's in on it. And from the minute you decide to go, it's an experience. So by the time I get on the elevator that's going to drop in those 30 seconds, I've already decided if I like the ride or not. I'm not even on it yet. I've already decided I like it or not. And I remember at the time thinking how they convinced millions of people every single day all over the world. There's like 15 different Disneylands to wait for a 30-second ride is because of the experience that they sell.
Wow, that's powerful.
Yeah, and I want to sell an experience. I don't want to sell. I want to give you an experience. Botox is easy. You can do it with your eyes shut. Anyone can go on a 2-day course, as you've seen, but no one can give you an experience. So those are the 3 pillars of The Secret. Patient safety and care at the forefront. That I want to make you happy, and then that it's an experience. It's not an appointment. Like from the minute you decide you're going to come see me, even the way the emails are worded, I word it in a way that I would speak to you. Like, hey, so honored you've chosen me. I'm buzzing to see you. It's not a generated email. I've written it myself. And then when you come in and there's family photos and you're chilling on the sofa, and yeah, I think that I wanted to create an experience. I wanted to change it up a little bit. And
you absolutely feel that from the minute you walk in, from every element of the way it looks, the way it feels, the people that you meet, right?
Yeah.
The candles lit, Beyonce playing, right?
Yeah, man.
Yeah, like all of that. And I think what I've always loved about it is even by the second visit, like I'm having big chats with your mum and building a relationship with her.
Oh, my mum was obsessed. I was like, Mum, I'm going to go. I've got a podcast with Paul Sparks. She was like, tell Sparkles I say hi.
I love her.
How are you You're saved as Sparkles on my phone.
I love that. I feel like she came up with that though, right?
Yeah, but everyone's using it now. Kenny, you know Alex McNairn's hubby, fiance, he was like, what are you doing today? And I said, he's like, oh yeah, Sparkles. I was like, my mum came up with that.
I love that. Yeah, it was. Like, it was your mum.
Yeah. She genuinely thinks that's your name, and it should be.
I love that. I'll take it all day. So I think that was probably another thing I was going to ask you, right? Is about what is that like working with family? How have you, because I'd imagine that has peaks and troughs, right? What is that like working alongside your family so closely?
I think ultimately you know that family, especially when you've been through what we've been through, is unbreakable. Like there's nothing that's going to break us up. Touch wood. Don't want to jinx it. So we can have really raw conversations, even when like Shad will see a patient of mine, he'll say, I saw your Botox patient and I wouldn't have done it like that. And I think, and I'm like, but was the patient happy? He was like, I'm not talking about the patient, I'm talking about me. And I'm like, well, was the patient happy? I just go on and give the patient what she wanted. And then we have like really raw, sometimes offensive and hurtful conversations. But ultimately like 3 minutes passes and we're like, you want a drink? Because I'm going to go into the kitchen. So that part's great in that I never feel like I have to be HR prepped because what are you going to complain about? You're my brother.
Such a
Calm
good
down.
point. Yeah.
And it's then it makes you relaxed because I'm the way I am at work, the way I am at home. Because I don't have awkwardness around anyone. I'm not like, oh God, like I said something last week with them and they're being really weird with me. And then I'm just going to stick in my room. And because patients can sense your energy.
Yeah.
So it's great at work because I feel like I'm at home. I see my mom. My mom will come in and be like, I was in Asda. I just thought I'd come in. Can I get a skin booster? I'm like, Mom, sit down. People make appointments for this. But she'll sit at the desk and she'll talk to everyone.
Yeah.
And my brother's there and it's great. Like I'll be like, how was your date last night? And it's really calm. It's really warm. I feel like I'm at home. I feel like I'm not missing anything out when I was at work. And I felt like I was at work. I had so much FOMO for all the moments I was missing at home. But it's not like that. Which these are the positive parts. The negative parts is there's money involved. So there's going to be some conflict about, and also not only is there money involved, but I'm also the boss. So there's a big part of me that took a long time to see it as I'm running a business rather than I'm taking money from my brother. That was really hard. So I tried to give him as much as possible. And I was like, well, hold on, like, how is the building going to run? Like I need to take a cut and it needs to work out. And then sitting down and talking about percentage splits and things like that, I found that really difficult, especially in a family that money is not a thing for us. Like none of us are driven by that.
Yeah.
So then my brother would say to my mom, Kaly charged me for a filler and I was just treating my friend. What the hell? And my mom would be like, you better call your brother right now and you better give that filler back. You know, it's his friend. You know what friends are there? And I'd be like, Mom, please don't get involved. And then I'll say, Shad saw one of my patients and he said that he wouldn't have done Botox like that to her. And now she doesn't want to see me again. And then my mom would be like, Shad, don't bitch about your sister. And then that part gets a bit messy. Whereas with work, like you have your HR personality on, you leave and it's professional. So that's been really difficult. And then also like my brother will take the absolute piss and he'll go like 15 Ibiza trips a year. And I'm like, when are you seeing your
I feel
patients?
like he's away a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
When are you going to see your patients? That's been difficult. I do feel like it's constantly a learning curve, especially when the business is changing all the time. Like our roles change but for the most part, it's great. I love it.
I think what it feels like, and you feel that when you walk in, whether it is the photos on the wall or the energy in the room or the fact that it is your family, it feels, the more you're talking about it, that the whole of the place is an expression of your soul.
Yeah.
You know that when you think about it, like your home is an expression of your soul, right? The way that you look after your home, right? The space that you live in, it feels like an extension of that, right? And talking about your soul, one of the things that I find fascinating about you, and I really want to uncover it a little bit, is that I feel you have a personality, or you as a person, you have something about you that people feel like they know you. They feel connected to you, right? And I told you this earlier that before we met, I followed you on social media. During COVID, I was watching your videos about skincare. And by the time we met, I already felt like I knew you. It was quite funny when you opened the door and you came to welcome me. I was like, oh, she's a real person, because I'd only seen you on Instagram, right?
That's so funny to me.
But for you, what do you think it is? Because that's not always an easy thing to do, right? But especially in social media, what is it about you that makes people make that connection to you? I think
just don't take it seriously. Just don't take it seriously. I remember starting COVID because I had nothing else to do. I was like, I'm sick and tired of venting to my then boyfriend about how weird this all is. There's no regularity. Do I need to wake up at 9 or can I stay in bed till 12? It was like a form of expression for me. And the numbers are just numbers. I think the same in bank accounts. It's just numbers that change every now and then, but who I am in today is the same. So I would do lives or I'd do Q&As and it would say, 40 people have viewed your story. And I'd be like, cool, who are they though? Like it's just a number. And then it would go up to 1,000, then it would go up to 5,000. But it didn't change how I spoke or who I was. Like I just still looked at it as a mode of venting almost. So then I was just my authentic self. I didn't try and be anything. I think in social media, there's so many people that try and portray the perfect lunch and like the way that you're table is, and you know when they take the photo and everything is perfect, I'm like, bitch, I got tissues, I got nipple cream, I got, like, my phone is smashed up. How is your thing so aesthetically pleasing?
Yes.
Or their home is just always perfect. See,
Yes.
people that do like, come day in the life of me, and the initial scene is them getting out of bed. I'm like, you got out of bed, you set up your camera, you got back into bed, you press record. What? Like, if I'm gonna do in the day in the life, it's selfie mode.
Yes.
And I'm rough, like I'm getting up. And I think it was so nice for people during COVID, where it was such a helpless, weird time, that there was somebody that showed them that it's not perfect, and I have no idea what I'm doing either, but let's just have a laugh every now and then. And it almost became like I was venting to a friend. And even the DMs that I was getting back, I was receiving it as if it was a friend texting me back. So I was then replying back, lol, have you seen this? Rather than like a professional generic, thank you for contacting Dr. Kaly Jaff.
Yes.
If you want to get an appointment, I've never had that. It's always been me saying, you look fire, or responding. And then I got to choose who I was following, and then it butterflied from that. I think people see my page as like a business page, whereas I see it as my personal page.
Yeah.
And it's not perfect, but neither is my life.
And it's authenticity, right?
Yeah.
That's the key thing, right? It's your authentic self. And it goes back to what I said about that example with the bakery, right?
Yeah.
Is that when you're putting forward the authenticity of your soul, people connect to that, right?
Yeah.
So I think one of the things we haven't really talked about, and we've talked about it a little bit, but not really, because it's a very unique place and it's unbelievable, is tell me about The Secret.
What The Secret is, do you know, I came up with it years ago. It was a dream. And I listened to a podcast, and the person had said, a dream is a fantasy until you write it down, then it's a goal, because it's a to-do list.
Wow, I love that.
So I felt like I had to write down, I had to make my fantasy into, and my fantasy was to like own my own place and support my family. That was it. It wasn't what The Secret is today. And I was like, well, how do I write that down so it's a to-do list? So my brain then has to tick it off, because I'm OCD, and once it's written, I have to tick it off. At first I wrote own a clinic. Then I thought, with that could be dentistry, that could be anything. Then I was like, okay, own an aesthetics clinic. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, you got to name it. It has to manifest into what you want it to be. So then I thought about names. At first, it was all like Kaly driven, Dr. Kaly Jaff's place, Kaly's place, Kaly's comfy, keeping up with Kaly. And then I had more time to think about what I wanted it to be. And I wanted it to be a place where people came and nobody knew. Like, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you want to get to know. So I came up with The Secret. But just in that moment, Katie Holmes released a terrible Netflix movie called The Secret, which is
I've never even heard of it.
It was based on the book,
Okay.
The Secret, about manifesting and how to like live your life. So they turned that into a book. They turned that into a Netflix movie, and it was shocking. It was just one night in COVID. I was like, put it on. I've watched everything else. I've not watched the whole of Tiger King. Let me see what's going on here. I was like, wow.
Remember Tiger King?
Oh my God.
I forgot about that.
I'm never going to financially recover from this. Like, I replay that in my head all the time.
You've just downloaded that from me. I forgot about that.
I love Tiger
That was in a vault somewhere.
I watched it, and then, as you do once you've watched something, all the algorithms change, and then there's all these things coming up about The Secret on Instagram, and it was this red book with a waxy stamp with an S, and I was like, how weird that I just watched this and it's all over my social media. Then I realized it was a book about the secret to success and all about like manifesting and making things goals rather than dreams, which then brought me all the way back to me trying to figure out what my clinic was called. So I thought, let's just call it The Secret then. So I wrote down, maybe in like 2018, 2019, a clinic. And then at 2020, I realized it was The Secret. So I said, own The Secret. And then what was The Secret? And it just was perfect in that it went with my ethos that your treatment should be really subtle. Nobody should really know what your secret is. You just look good. And the older you're getting, the younger you feel and your energy is good. That I wanted it to look like somewhere that if the taxi driver was to drop you off, or your boyfriend or your husband, they don't know if it's a cafeteria or a hotel. They have no idea.
I love that.
You just sit down and like, if you know, you know, and if you don't know, you want to get to know. And then the third one was about what the secret represents, which is like manifesting and building the empire for my family and like some sort of support. So it just made sense. And I remember speaking to a guy, I went to a conference, like a Scottish dental conference, and he was a business developer. And I said to him, like, so I was an associate dentist at the time. I really want to own my own clinic, and I want to call it The Secret. And he was like, dentistry? And I was like, yeah, like just like aesthetics, dentistry, sedation. I put everything in because I had no clear vision just yet. And he was like, okay, well, my advice would be that you pick a clinic, you pick a property that's across from like a shopping center that has like an Asda or something with a car park that patients can then use. And then you're getting a lot of footfall and with lots of windows. And once you've got the property, then get back in touch with me and I'll do the rest for you. I was
very specific.
Yeah. And I was like, what? Like, where am I going to find loads of windows near a car park in a shopping centre? And do you know Crow Road where the M&S is with the Sainsbury's and the McDonald's? Yes. So my brain was going to that. I was like, so it has to be somewhere where people are going all the time. There's going to be a lot of footfall. But there's nowhere there that I would want to buy. So kind of like, it was one of these nuggets. Like he said it and I was like, well, that was useless. And I just left it. And then November 2020 comes along. My husband's a quantity surveyor. I had COVID. I was dying of COVID. And he was like, I know you're really unwell, but a property's come up on auction. It's going to auction tomorrow at 12. This is Thursday night, by the way. You can't see it because it's COVID. There was no viewings or anything like that. Here is the catalogue. It had 4 photos. It was the outside, the picture of one of the vaults and a floor plan. He was like, do you want to get in the car and I'll show you? And I said, fine. So we got in the car. It was pissing with rain, like November in Scotland. Like the wipers were on maximum. I still couldn't see. And we parked outside The Secret. And I remember just looking at it and being like, I think that's it. It's really weird. Like when I drew it, it was, have you seen, remember the Titanic poster? It was like the ship's coming towards you. Yeah, and it comes to the, yeah, I drew it like that. Like that was my clinic. It was like the Titanic and it was coming towards me. And in Mitchell Library, the photo of the building is exactly in that corner. I framed it. It's in The Secret. And I had to transfer the money. We then got the keys. And the first time I saw inside was when I opened it. But I was so sure that was it. And I was willing to take the risk. I sold my flat. I used the money of my flat to buy it. And I just knew like there's something about this place. And I always called it The Secret because at the time, nobody knew what I was doing. I didn't want to tell my friends. I thought my family would think I was crazy. Like my mom and dad knew. None of cousins, aunts, nothing. My patients still saw me as a dentist. I didn't want to do something and everyone was like, oh, how's it going? And how are you, when are you going to open? And had that added pressure. So it was just a secret as well. So everything it just came, it just happened. But I just followed my gut. I knew this is special. I'm willing to take a risk. What's the worst that could happen? Lose your money.
And I just think it's interesting because I think that when you even think back to that conversation that you had, right, with the person who said to you, it's going to be near an Asda and a shopping centre and like really specific details. And then when you look at where it is now, right, I really think that it's funny because quite often we are under the illusion of time, right? And actually beyond that, from a spiritual perspective, the movie was already starting to play out. Yeah. That was going to be yours. It was coming, right? And when you go there now, it's where you're supposed to be, 100%. Right? So I think that also one of the things I'm a big advocate of is that I really believe that we put our energy into the space that we're in, right? So when you go to someone's home and they're a negative person, right, or there's negative things that go on, you can feel it, right? Now, at the opposite though, when somebody makes you feel welcomed and they make you a cup of coffee and they welcome people into their home and they do that, you can feel it in the walls.
Yeah,
right. And I think you can walk into a space and you feel that energy, right? It sounds a little bit airy fairy, but it's not. It's practical,
but
right?
I poured everything into that building.
Yeah.
And I wanted it to be a representation of how I treat you as a patient.
Yeah.
I wanted you to know I could have gone to IKEA, but I didn't. I went to Porcelanosa.
Mm-hmm.
I could have done it in 9 months. I took 3 years. I could have had white walls. I didn't want it to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
I could have had plasterboard to section this off. I wanted glass. I took my time. I invested. I really researched that building. I was in Mitchell Library. I was online. I was talking to the residents that live upstairs. I wanted everyone's opinions. I created an Instagram. I joined I Come Fae Govan Facebook forum. Like, guys, I want to know that what I do is respectful of what the building deserves. She survived 2 world wars. Everything around her has been knocked down. She's the only pillar that's left.
Wow.
People are like, my granddad's bank account was with them. It was Glasgow Savings Bank. It's known as the Potted Heath building. It represents the top of it. There's a little turret. And it looks like the helmet of one of the World War men.
Wow.
It's a building that's really, really respected. People have a lot of connections about it. People have pictures of them on the windowsills outside when they were 3 and now they're coming to get Botox with me. So I really dived into the building like I do my patients. I really invested the materials like I do my patients. I only choose the best and I only use the best. I really took my time. It took 3 years. I had 2 children in that time and I never went off piece. I never pressed pause. I just kept going. Like I do my patients. I took 6 weeks off for my first baby and 8 for the second. And I wanted to be like if I had to personify how I treat my patients, that's it. I wanted you to come and feel that, okay, this sofa's nice. It smells good. I could have had a candle from IKEA, but it's not. It's Joe Malone. And because I want to show that I invest in you and therefore you're rest assured to invest in me. And that's the whole Disneyland experience, which started when I was 15, 16. So like you saying, the movie's already played out. You know, when you watch a movie again for the second time, like, shit, man, they told me in scene 2 that was coming. There's these like snippets the whole way. And I feel the same in relationships. I feel when you look at your previous relationships, ex-boyfriend, your universe, whatever you want to call it, your faith, your God, your energy, your fate, they tell you the whole time the ending of that relationship. They give you little snippets. They tell you again. They remind you. They show you. And you're like, yeah. But when you play it back, you're like, it was there the whole time. And the secret was there the whole time. The whole time. From Disney to the book to the movie to the name to that really random conversation with that guy. It all planted, you know, when you talk about the puzzle.
Yeah.
It's like a Rubik's Cube. And then before you know it, all the colors just, it was all back to normal again. And that's where I feel I am. I really feel complete, especially with my family, especially what I've given back to my parents. So I guess the next question is, what's next? Like what? Because you have to reinvent yourself. I can't just keep playing the same thing. Okay, people are evolving and they're changing. And that's why I was saying, like, my current passion is education. That will change in 5 years. It might then be, I really want to train people. I have a facial aesthetics training academy and I love it. I wouldn't say it's my number one passion, but it is a bow on my string. So then things might shift again, then it might change. I might fall back in love with just injectables and just get my gloves on 5 days a week. But yeah, I do feel like the Rubik's Cube is just at its last click in the last 6 months or so.
But what I like is there's both realities can exist at the same time, right? Meaning you can feel content, you can feel things are complete, you can feel that you're in the right space. And at the same time, you can be thinking about, evolving. But what's next? How do I evolve? You can have both, right? And I think I find that with clients quite a lot. They have that inner battle of saying, I don't want to feel content. I don't want to feel content. I want to keep moving. But you can have both. Yeah, right?
Of course you can. And if you're not content, then you're forever running on a hamster wheel, aren't you?
Looking for the next thing, right? So I think it's a beautiful space to be in. I think if we flip it on its head, because I imagine that came with a lot of challenges, right? So when you think about the last few years, what were the biggest challenges that you faced in your business?
Well, the first one when I started was the misconception of what it was.
Yeah.
Which was that it was below dentistry, which actually I found dentistry much easier. There's a formula for dentistry. It's you have 28 to 32 teeth. They must be clean. Please try and make your patients to this level. You had a criteria. There was a rule book to follow. Everybody's teeth need to meet. You need to chew and you need to speak. Done. Aesthetics is so subjective. It's an art. It's it's like a beauty that I can't control. I got to get into your psyche. You got to get into mine. We need to agree. So that was the first one. Is I really had to let go of people's perception of it, what their opinion of it, of my career is none of my business. It makes me happy. And therefore I'm going to carry on with that one. So that was a really big challenge, is like trying to convince my dad that I wasn't letting him down.
Yeah.
He's like, what am I going to tell my brothers that you're not a doctor anymore? I'm like, I'm still a doctor. I'm just a doctor of something else.
Exactly.
Relax. And then challenges of, I think when you're building your client list, that's a big one. I'm so grateful that I have a list that's big enough that I've closed my diary off to new registrations, and I'm seeing everyone again, and I'm not having to make an impression for the first time. Because I don't know, call me old, but I find it really difficult to make a good, I find that I think it's difficult to make a good impression first time. I know that sounds crazy to you, but you know, when you go into a party and I'm like, I don't even want to meet anyone new today. I just can't be bothered to put on the act. Put on the act was a big challenge for me. Not that it was fake, but I think it's unreasonable to expect somebody to be happy every single day.
Absolutely.
Have a show every single day. I only turn up on my Instagram when I'm ready to sing and dance. But the reality is there's days where I just don't want to talk.
Yeah.
I'm tired. Or I do want to talk, but I just want to talk about what you want to talk about. Don't ask about me. So putting on a show until I built my client list was exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And in that time, there was a lot to show. I was engaged. I got married. I fell pregnant. I had the baby. I fell pregnant again. I had another baby. I bought a house. People were like, tell me. I'm like, oh my God, I'm having the same conversation. It's the 16th person and I don't want to talk about my pregnancy anymore. And I actually joked about recording a reel type for the day.
Hi. And just have it on repeat.
Don't ask me anything that I've just played. Hi, I'm Kaly. I've not peed today. I'm 32 weeks pregnant. I don't know what the baby's going to be called. My pregnancy is fine. I'm not going on any holidays. Thanks. And being like, do not ask me those questions. I found that really difficult to like put on a show. But again, because I was honest about that on socials, people connected with that. I did a post this time last year about how I was really struggling mentally I was overweight. I had a newborn. Luca had serious attachment issues because I was so focused on the new baby, and I was renovating the house. My relationship was upside down, and I found it impossible to turn up on socials. And then your ratings go down. Your Instagram's like, you have not posted a reel in 3 days. And then you see the numbers going down, and the back of your brain, you're like, everything that I've worked for is going down the drain because you just got to turn up, Kaly, just freaking smile. So I put a post up saying like, I'm logging out for a few weeks, guys. I just need a minute. And it was a post of a video of me that I thought that I looked my worst. I was really overweight. I'd lost so much hair. I had extensions and you could see all the bald patches, and I just put it up and a caption like, I'm struggling. For anyone that's struggling, you're not alone, but I'm just out for a few minutes. Don't ask me any questions. I logged out of Instagram. And I remember when I was ready to log back in again, I didn't remember my password. I was like, who logs out of Instagram? But the amount of DMs and love and like interactions that post had was outrageous. I remember being like overwhelmed by it. But it just clarifies again that when you're yourself and you don't put on a song and dance, people connect to that so much more. I don't know if you've been on TikTok, and have you heard of Spencer Pratt?
Yes, as in Spidey.
Spidey.
Yes.
Okay, he is the definition of what I'm trying to explain.
Yeah.
He has been the villain since The Hills.
Yeah, since day one. He was
Yeah.
the villain, right?
And he's just been his authentic self. His house burned down. And he went on camera and said, I'm having a shocker. And it's just gone poof, because people can see it. He's authentic. He's struggling. He's not pretending. Paris Hilton, her house burned down. What did she do? She went to Chanel and restocked her Chanel bags. There's like a footage of her with like maybe genuinely 10 Chanel bags. Who's looking at that? I'm looking at Spencer cheersing a dirty margarita to himself, a spicy margarita, and being like, cheers for 1 million, guys. Who would have thought to burn down my house? Wish I thought of that sooner. So funny.
Yeah.
And so human. And I think, I don't even know how we got into that, but I do think that social part, you know, when you're saying you're personable, is just to be authentic in the highs and the lows of it. It's not fair to just share your highs.
I remember the post that you're talking about that you did, and I remember the interactions that you got from that, but I think you're spot on. It's that vulnerability. It's that authenticity, right? And you just putting your most authentic self forward, right?
Yeah.
So this has been fascinating. And thank you, because I've learned, even as your friend, right, I've learned so much from this about things I didn't know, right? I'm going to leave you with one question, right? Which is that if someone was watching this and thinking about setting up a business, thinking about the very early stages of what they do, what is one piece of advice that you would give to someone who's starting a business?
Okay, and the advice that I wish that somebody gave to me is get your blinkers on and get your head down. Because I was so guilty of being like, what's she doing? And that's getting her followers. And what's she doing? And that looks really interesting, and I'll do that. And I was so busy trying to do what I thought worked for everybody else that it took me a while to figure out what worked for me. It doesn't matter. Just get your blinkers on, get your head down, remember your why, and just repeat that. Just repeat the formula. I'm doing this because I want to support my family. I'm doing this because I want my patients to know that I love and care for them. I'm doing this because I'm supporting my family. I'm doing this because I want my patients to know I love and care for them. Show them that. Blinkers on. It doesn't matter. Because I don't know if you've seen that video, that photo of, it's an Olympic swimmer. He's swimming and he becomes number one. It's a snapshot just at the finish line. Number one, his head down in the water and he's swimming. And number two is looking to number one. If he just had his head down and was swimming, he probably would have won it. Like they're a hand span apart from number one and number two. So yeah, that would be my number one advice. And something I do still have to remind myself is get your head down, get your blinkers on, and just focus on your path. Just keep going. And it doesn't matter if you had a bad post or a bad day or that they had 7 million views and you thought their reel wasn't even that funny. It doesn't matter. Just come on, horsey. Just follow that carrot and it will all work out. If you have your purpose, it will all work out.
Amazing. And you know, that always loops back, and it's such good advice to really where we started, which is purpose and values and knowing what you stand for.
Yeah.
Right. So thank you again. I cannot thank you enough. This has been
for having me.
So amazing and just so great for me again, selfishly, to hear your story, right? So thank you so much. I love you. And
I love and appreciate you as well. Thanks for having me.
No problem.
And good luck. I know it's going to be such a huge success as well.
Thank you.
Thanks.